You doing this bit? Oh my. Welcome to Hengoed on the Rhymney Valley. And it may be asking the question, why have I come here, of all places, to do a film about the Rhymney Railway Company? Well, there's a very good reason for it, and I'm about to show you now. Because as you come along this platform, we go over a road bridge, but you can see there was a parapet of another bridge just there, and that bridge is quite a bit higher than the track bed here, and it gives you a bit of a clue of what Hengoed was all about, because it would have come up at the end of this car park all the way. The lines would have come up here and then continued on in that direction, and when we look down here we can see that the line is, as I say, quite a bit lower, and that masonry there and that bridge there might give you a clue. In actual fact, this linked up to another railway. Now, there's always clues that some of these paths are railway lines. This 30 great big viaduct behind me is a bit of a giveaway, really. This is Hengoed Viaduct, and the line in question is the Newport, Abergavenny and Hereford Railway. Later became the West Midlands Railway, and latterly after that the Great Western, even before grouping. And this was the one that the Rhymney Railway wanted to link up to. Why? Because it went in that direction to Quakers Yard, went through Nelson, and it linked up with the Taff Vale Railway, which meant they could get their goods from Rhymney, where they wanted to start from, down to the docks in Cardiff, going over these couple of railways. These woods heading up in here, now a path, would have been the exchange sidings. There is nothing around at all to suggest there was anything here. Wish I had a fiver for every time I said that on a video. There's a little bit of something just down here though. So let's tell the full story. It all started in 1854. The Rhymney Railway Act was passed. A group of wealthy businessmen, as is a normal case, wanted to get their goods from the valleys down into Cardiff, and they looked at how they could do this. They initially had the line from Rhymney Ironworks down to Hengoed, and as I say, linked up the Newport, Abergavenny and Hereford Railway, and then went in this direction towards Quakers Yard. They linked up there to the Taff Vale. That was the theory. The reality was they couldn't actually get the connection with the Taff Vale at Quakers Yard, so they had to go for Plan B, and Plan B meant they had to plough south. Hence they built Hengoed low level, as it eventually became, and then Hengoed, and they went south. They went through Astrummunnock and ended up at Caerphilly. At Caerphilly they went round the top of the town, as you can see on this map here. Branch line down towards Van, which became useful later on, but then they continued down towards Taff's Well and Walnut Tree Junction. So here we are. No idea what this is. It looks like a platform, but there was never a station here. It must have been some sort of loading bay or something. And metal rail-shaped things on it would say possibly there was a fence there. At the same time, they built a station at Caerphilly. You can see this on the map here, and it's nowhere near the one today. In actual fact, it's very close to where Aber Station is now, and this pub is named after the Caerphilly station, not Aber. And the original station would have been located roughly where these blue topped units are. Today there's absolutely nothing to show the line was here except this filled in bridge at Trycenneth on the way up. And it's not till you get to Penrose and Penrose Cutting, which have been on a lot, that you see any relics of this line at all. They also at the same time built a 1.5 mile extension down in Cardiff. So just north of Queen Street Station, they built a junction called Crockertown Junction, and the line went off there down into the docks. Once it got into the docks, they built a locomotive works, which eventually moved to Caerphilly and became their loco shed down there. And next to it, you'll see on this map, it says station. Well, it was actually a workman's station, and they ran works trains there a couple of times a day. They started passenger services in 1858, 2 trains a day, 24-mile journey all the way from Cardiff up to Rhymney took 90 minutes, which in those days was quite impressive. It's a lot quicker these days, shall we say. But it was all about freight and getting freight from up there down to the docks. And that was the whole purpose of this line. In 1864, they started to expand. I've told the story about Darren and Derry and the big fight to get the line through Bargoed, and they extended up to Derry. And they had running rights to get themselves right up to Dowlais Iron Works, which was, in those days, quite an important customer. In the same year, they struck north from Rhymney and linked up the London North Western Railway at a place called Nanty Bog. It basically meant that they could get, again, out to the Midlands and out up into the Dowlais and Merthyr Iron Works area, but it also gave the London North Western Railway running powers over the Rhymney line. In 1867, they teamed up again, but this time with the Great Western Railway, and built a new line up the other side of the Taff Valley, aiming to get to Dowlais and Merthyr directly. The series of lines meant the Rhymney had access to a lot of mineral traffic, coal coming down and iron ore going back up again. But it was 1871 the company really struck out. They made a game-changing move. They decided that rather than rely on the Taff Vale to get their goods down into Cardiff, they'd build their own line. And that meant they had to build Caerphilly Tunnel. It's quite an extensive bit of work, but it gave them direct access down into Cardiff. They built a new station at Caerphilly and at the same time a new terminus at Crockett. The original terminus that they had down in Cardiff was called Adam Street, and it became a goods station. These are images of Crockett Station, and you can see there were 2 through platforms. There were 2 other stations on that line, incidentally. One at Llanishen, which is still there today, and the other one was built at Cathay Cemetery. Didn't last very long, and video if you want to know more. There was an issue, though, in building this line down to Cardiff, and that was that Rhymney Railway wasn't exactly doing brilliantly. They needed to have their loans underwritten up steps the London North Western Railway. And in doing so, at one point, there were brass plaques on a lot of the Rhymney Railway locos saying property of the London North Western Railway. It was only after the loans were paid that the plaques were taken off. The London North Western had running powers over the line, and down in Cardiff built a very short link to a warehouse down there, and they had their own goods traffic running down into Cardiff directly from the Midlands. They also did another strikeout in 1871, building a line north of Ystrad to head up towards Nelson. So instead of coming along this line that we're on here, they were able to use the Great Western lines to head up north. It gave them access to the Aberdare Valley, and again, another flow of freight. Traffic was booming, but between Caerphilly and Ystrad the line was only singled. And so, as expensive as it was, in 1872, they were forced to double it. They opened a number of branch lines, including up to Sengeneth, serving Universal Colliery in Sengeneth and Windsor Colliery in Abertrydda. One of these branches they built went up to Penelta Colliery, coming off at Ystrad, and with the line going up towards Cumbargoed, the one up to Penelta and the one up to Hengoed, Ystrad became a very busy junction. There was a miners' halt up there as well, serving the colliery, but apart from that, it wasn't really used for passengers, like a lot of the Rhymney, simply used for shifting coal. As the years went on, they innovated. Edmund Prosser, who I've talked about before, introduced rail motors on the Sengeneth line, and after the grouping with the Great Western Railway, they ran between Sengeneth and, using the old B&M lines from Caerphilly, ended up terminating at Macon. Now, the Rhymney didn't have their own locomotive works. They obtained them from a number of builders. Initially, Kitson, Vulcan Foundry, well known in the early days of steam locomotive development. And initially, they had tender locomotives like the one shown in this picture here. But from the 1870s, they concentrated on the 062 tank loco design, much used across the Welsh valleys. And in fact, I talked about it in the Taff Vale railway video that I made. And they were mainly built by the Stevenson loco builders, and like a lot of locos that were around at the time, passed into GWR hands, and some of them even made it into British Rail hands. It's sad to say that unlike the Taff Vale and others, there's none left in preservation, but there are photos and these drawings which show some of the different classes. At grouping in 1921, the Rhymney was part of the group that amalgamated together to become the Great Western Railway, and rationalisation took place. Nationalisation in 1948 saw even more lines closed, and one by one the Rhymney lines closed down. As collieries closed, freight services closed, and lines closed. And it's quite ironic that a network that was built primarily to shift freight saw its last coal train run in December of 2023. Today, the line is being electrified, and here at Hengoed, you can see the masts disappearing up into the distance. There are Stadler Flirt tri-mode trains coming up here, which will link the Rhymney Valley with Barry Island, and Bridgend through the Vale of Glamorgan. And so today, we look on the map, you can see this long railway from Rhymney all the way down into Cardiff. The tri-mode trains will continue down into the Vale of Glamorgan, but it's fair to say the Rhymney Railway played a key part in forming of what is today the South Wales Metro. By the way, the link over there, which goes up towards the viaduct, is known as the Gren Way. Gren was a cartoonist, the South Wales Echo, which is why we have the dragon. And over there we have the rugby player, and that little man that I was sitting next to at the start of the video was a typical Gren character. As I've been filming this, writing this, we tried to come up with a tagline to describe the Rhymney Railway. You see, they weren't a pioneer like the Taff Vale, even though they were quite early on in the railway world in South Wales. They weren't great pioneers of new technologies. They didn't build huge amounts of structures. They built what they needed to build. They partnered with whoever they needed to partner with, the Great Western or the LNWR, to get where they needed to go. And the Caerphilly Tunnel was a major works, but apart from that, they really just got on with the job. And I think that kind of sums them up. The Rhymney Railway, they did what they needed to do and simply just got on with the job. And so from my friend here and myself sitting on Hengoed Viaduct on a very sunny summer's afternoon, please like, please subscribe, and keep your eye out. There's more content coming soon. So until next time.